All right. I'm Jeffrey Harris of 411 Mania. He is Jay Snook of the Good Men Project. Say hi, Jay, so everyone can see you.
Hey there, how's it going?
All right. And we are here for the latest episode of Hollywood Purgatory. Hollywood Purgatory. And the reason I did it like that is because there was some major Star Wars news recently. The last time we were on, Jay, we were all concerned about what was happening with Star Wars because what happened?
Yeah, Colin Trevorrow got fired from episode 9, directing
The
it.
original director and writer of the film, Colin Trevorrow, however you say it, he is no longer a part of the film. He was let go by Lucasfilm. And a short time after that, after we were wondering what was going to happen, what happened, Jay?
J.J. Abrams got brought back in.
Who is that?
He's the director of some of the Star Trek films in episode 7.
Correct. So the guy who helped revive Star Wars Mania, J.J. Abrams, he is returning to the Star Wars trilogy after we thought he was just going to be one and done. He is back and he is directing Star Wars episode 9 for Lucasfilm as of right now, because who knows? It could change in a month. The way at this rate, the way Lucasfilm is replacing directors.
Well, I saw something really weird about that right before this, where I guess a lot of fans are mad because I saw there's a petition to fire him already. Okay. I saw that like recently.
When is that, Jay? When has an internet petition ever actually mattered? Name me one
instance. I saw that, so I was like surprised.
You saw an internet. Okay, I saw an internet petition to have George Lucas direct episode 8.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything? Does that mean anything?
I'm just saying I saw it.
I'm disappointed you just even said it. Okay, because it's not even look. Businesses don't conduct themselves the way over a handful of people write an online petition. Okay, how many people even signed that petition?
I didn't look, but it looked like there was a lot.
How much is a lot?
I can try to find it real quick. But I just found that interesting because I thought that people would be really happy, and I guess some fans aren't happy that he is.
Well, all right. Before we get to that, it's not the only thing that Abrams is coming back as director. He is being joined by someone else. He's being joined by another writer who he will co-write the film as of now with, and that writer is Chris Terrio, who was the co-writer of Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and he's also serving as writer of the upcoming Justice League movie that's due out this year. And he was also the writer of Argo, I believe, correct?
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at this now. Okay, so it's something that like a Movie Web wrote about, but yeah, I was just
find me the actual petition, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's being joined by the Academy Award-winning screenwriter, the guy who won an Oscar for Argo. Chris Terrio is going to be co-writing episode 9 with J.J. Abrams. I say as of now because, look, things change. We thought Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, we thought they were going to direct the Han Solo film. They were directing it, and halfway through production, they got fired and replaced by Ron Howard. So these things are very amorphous.
Well, the only reason I brought that up at all is because I was surprised. I think J.J. Abrams is a great idea to direct episode 9 because he did so good with 7. I want to see him end it just how he started it, or I think he'd be good to end it because he did a good job starting it, is what I mean to say. So that's why I was surprised to see the petition because I was like,
all right.
I think he's a great choice.
First things first, Jay, what do you think of this news?
I think it's great news because I think if he's already done Star Wars once, why not do it again? And I think because how many of the Star Treks did he direct? Just 1 and 2?
He directed Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness 2004.
And that's how he did a good job.
2013, 4 years later.
He did a good job with those. So, and like I said, with 7, he did a really good job. So I'm excited for him to do 9. I think it's great news.
All right, now I'm also excited because it's weird. It's cool to dislike this film now. It's cool to be sort of part of the the hipster crowd, and now it's cool to bash The Force Awakens and trash the film. I don't know why. It seems in 2015 when it first came out, everyone loved it, and it was like, so, oh wow, suddenly Star Wars is good again. We can like Star Wars again. But I think it was almost like a year or so later, around the time Rogue One came out, everyone started calling the film a rehash. Well, I mean, some of those complaints were around, but it's now a lot more widespread that the movie's too nostalgic. It's too much of a rehash of Episode 4, A New Hope. What do you think of those criticisms, Jay?
I thought it was kind of weird criticisms because, in a way, it was like 4 because it's starting another trilogy, like 4 did. You know, like Episode 7 left you with more questions and answers, which is what Episode 1 did and Episode 4 did. That's what most films do, at least like that, in a trilogy. They want to start, like, to set the stage for what's going to happen, but they're not going to reveal much to you. That's just reality. So I think they were ridiculous criticisms. So, like, well, that's kind of the point of a Star Wars film that's starting a trilogy.
Okay. Just to show you how ridiculous online petitions are, first of all, online petitions, you're ridiculous. Change.org, you're ridiculous. Stop sending me emails. This petition, Jay, has 1,650 supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Does that even matter?
No, it's too small a number if I think about it.
I mean, come on. Lucasfilm, even if this so-called petition got 100,000 signatories, it wouldn't mean a damn thing. How many people go to see these movies? And I bet you every single one of these schmucks who signed this petition, even if 1,500 people really did sign it, they're all going to see this movie opening day.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be wrong to say that?
No, you wouldn't.
I mean, have you ever signed an online internet petition?
The only one I did was for Bring Back Agent Carter Season 3, which never happened, but you know.
It kind of just goes to show you how kind of little they mean, right?
And that one was actually a bigger petition. That got a lot more signatures. So.
Okay, businesses don't give a... First of all, I'm going to tell you businesses don't care about online petitions. Second of all, if you really want to send a message, you should do it in writing and send something to an actual address. No one gives a single drop of spit about a stupid online petition because it's not real. And you can fake those signatures. Don't you think?
Well, that's not always true because it wasn't a petition that brought back Family Guy, so that's not always true.
It wasn't. No, you want to know what brought back Family Guy? Here's what brought back Family Guy. 1, the ratings on a Cartoon Network Adult Swim when it got syndicated. Okay. 2, the DVD sales once they released seasons 1 through 3 on DVD, millions of copies. That's what makes people take note. Sales, money. So Family Guy struggled on Fox because it struggled to find, it was constantly getting moved around, the schedule. And the Fox executives didn't really take the show seriously. And once the show was put on Adult Swim, it was airing like every night. It was airing like several times a week. And people who maybe liked the show on Fox but couldn't have, but they had trouble finding it, now they finally had a place to watch it. And all the episodes were being collected on DVD. And that's when kind of, DVD is in decline right now. Home video is in decline in general. But back then, it was still cool to like buy a whole season of shows on DVD and finally, okay, these people who liked Family Guy, it found new life. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because of a petition, Jay. It was money. Money sent the message that, hey, this show has fans. People will watch this show. People will pay for it. And that's why Family Guy was brought back. It wasn't a damn petition.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I'm passionate about this, but online petitions are one of my biggest pet peeves ever. And they don't mean anything. And 1,005... Look, I mean, you can get 1,000 people to sign any old thing, I mean, it's not. It doesn't mean anything. that 1,000 people want him fired. Okay, so their goal is 2,500. And what are they going to do? They're going to send this to this petition will be delivered to Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm, the Walt Disney. What is Kathleen Kennedy going to do when she gets a petition, an online petition from change.org with 2,500 names on it? Well, gee, Jay, 2,500 people on change.org signed a petition. They don't want J.J. Abrams to direct episode 9. A movie that made $900 million domestically. $900 million. How many movies have done that?
Not many.
How many? Name one.
I can't off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are ones that have. I just can't name that off the top of my head.
Let me see. All-time domestic. None. Star Wars, 936 million domestic. Avatar, 760 million. What's number one? Star Wars. So you're going to ask Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, fire J.J. Abrams because we don't want him to direct Star Wars episode. You think the woman who gave J.J. Abrams the job to direct episode 7, a film that got great reviews and made 936 million, you think he's going to fire them because 2,500 idiots signed a dumb online petition? What? Now, okay. Now let's look up your petition for Agent Carter season 3. Let's see. 131,000. I'm going to tell you right now, Jay. 131,000 people on an online petition means nothing. Nothing. Maybe if we're talking in the millions, that might. Don't get me wrong. It's good clickbait fodder, but that's all it is. It's not. But if it got in the millions range, maybe it's a little sexier. But it's still meaningless at the end of the day because it's an online petition that someone just types some names into, and anyone can do that like 5 times or 100 times. You could probably come up with 100 different online signatures for a petition right now if you wanted. So, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to upset you. I'm just trying to show you just kind of how dumb this whole online petition thing is. Now, David Poland said something interesting on Twitter about this that I kind of wanted to read. He is, David Poland, the film critic. He's a prominent film critic. He did not have kind words about this move. He's not a fan, and he considers this. Let's see. Just trying to find the tweet he wrote. He talked about Mission Impossible 3. But just to continue the dialogue, do you think Chris Terrio as a writer on the movie is a good step?
I want to say yes. I think so. Because it seems like, again, like we said last week, Disney seems to know what they're doing with these movies for the most part. They do. You know?
But do they know what they're doing when they're having all this director turnover, in your opinion? Is it really...
I think so, yes, because they want the right director. They do.
Okay, but like they're turning over director, like they're hiring these guys, and then they're firing them during the middle of production. And do you think there could be a problem?
I know with Colin Trevorrow there clearly was, but I don't think with Abrams there will be, because they've worked with Abrams in the past. So it's a different experience than working with the one who was going to do 9, I think.
Okay. Here's the other thing that went along with this announcement. Right after they announced Abrams coming back, the film got moved from Memorial Day weekend. It's now moved from May 2019 to December 2019. So now all the main trilogy movies for the sequel trilogy will get released in December. In the old days, every Star Wars movie, both the originals and the prequels, they all came out in May, usually I think around a Memorial Day weekend. But this time, all the sequel films have been coming out in December. So what do you think of moving the film from May to December 2019?
I think it makes sense because a lot like people definitely are, because I think Rogue One came around during the holidays too, didn't it? Like around November, December.
Yeah, it came out December. Yeah, so all the Disney era films are coming.
So again, going back to what you said with how Seven did, I think they're realizing they can make a lot of money around that time period for Star Wars, and they clearly do because I think Rogue One made good money too. So I think they knows that's a real good market, and it's kind of there are big films coming out then, but not really ones to such a magnitude as Star Wars usually, where in May, the start of the summer, there's always some big film coming out during the summer. So I think that it's a good idea to move it to December, to be honest, because May is a little more iffy when it comes to Star Wars, at least with these movies.
Not in the past, though.
Well, I'm saying with these movies. With these movies, it is. In the past, maybe not, but with these movies, right. Yes, it is. I think.
So, but do you think that will be enough time now that Abrams and Trevorrow are on board? Do you think that's enough time for them to impose their vision and maybe fix any kinks and offer a cohesive vision to what will be the final film of the sequel trilogy? Probably not the final Star Wars film, but the final film of the new trilogy.
I think so. It gives me an extra 6 months, and they have, what, a year or two before then? So I think it's a good move.
You know, what happened was originally for episode 7, the original writer, remember, was Michael Arndt. Remember him, the writer of Toy Story 3? Mm-hmm. And then Abrams brought in Lawrence Kasdan, and they essentially did a page 1 rewrite to get the film ready for 2015. And Abrams, I think, wanted another year. I think Disney and Lucasfilm were adamant that it come out in 2015. And they got December 2015 instead of May 2016. Mm-hmm. Do you think that was enough for them to make the best film possible?
I think with the finished product, yes, it was. Because there was one cool special feature about episode 7 that I really liked, where when the cast did the first table read, they were all blown away with the first table read they did.
I know one who wasn't.
Well, I know that Mark Hamill, a lot of them really were. They were like blown away with the script. So I think it was a good. How
do you think Mark Hamill felt? He's brought in for this big table read, mm-hmm. and he finds out he doesn't have a. He's brought in to read the stage directions.
We had a lot of fun being the narrator of sorts. He said he had a lot of fun.
He's the narrator for this table read, and then he keeps turning. And he gets to the end. He doesn't have a single line, and that's where he finds out. How do you think he liked that?
I think that he probably actually did enjoy it because he pretty much just at the end just got to stand there. He didn't really have to do anything, and he still got paid for it. I think so. I think he's cool with it.
Because remember, his initial instinct was he thought what was going to happen was Luke would show up on Starkiller Base and be the one in the forest to save Rey and Finn and fight Kylo Ren. That was his initial thought was. But no, we don't see Luke until the very end, and he doesn't have a single line of dialogue. I can't imagine Mark Hamill was all that enthusiastic about it. You know, but he's apparently going to have a bigger role in the next film. So there you go.
Yeah, and they're all already saying they want to give him an Oscar for it too. The director has been saying, "Give Mark an Oscar for this performance." So it's kind of funny.
Now I don't agree with it, but there's been a wave lately that's kind of like a backlash against Star Wars in Episode 7. That it's nothing more than a tired rehash of A New Hope. And it just sort of seizes on all those nostalgic feelings by just rehashing the film and making it feel like a New Hope, and that's why people liked it. Is there any validity to any of these criticisms, Jay?
No, because I think it's an expansion on Episode 4 because it's been 30 years since 4. So, yeah, Starkiller Base is a bigger Death Star, but it's because they had 30 years to make a bigger Death Star.
But is the movie nothing more than just a rehash of A New Hope? Is it just basically
No.
the same movie?
No,
like
no,
just
it entirely is not.
Why do you think this is happening now, though?
I just think some fans want to make a stink because they want to make a stink and they want to, like, be heard. And it's been, it's been happening.
Why? But why? Because beforehand, like not everyone, but like the film was fairly universally loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think the prequels got pretty bad reviews. So like, let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just look at a sampling.
Episode 1 did. I know everybody hated Jar Jar.
Yeah, but like, let's look at Rotten Tomatoes, since that's kind of like the industry standard.
Mm.
Rotten Tomatoes gave Phantom Menace. It has a 55% rating.
Mm.
Average rating 6 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's out of over 200 reviews. Mm-hmm. Like over 215 reviews. Mm-hmm. So let's look at Attack of the Clones. I mean, that was 15 years ago, but 65%. So a fresh rating, average rating 6.7, 200 plus reviews, 65%. Now let's look at episode 7.
What about episode 3?
I think that was the only certified fresh one, but let's look at that. Okay, The Force Awakens, 92%, average rating 8.2 out of 10. So that's an increase of 2 points. And to be 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's a pretty good standing, as far as movies on the tomato meter go. But let's look at Revenge of the Sith. I think Revenge of the Sith got the strongest review. Okay, 79%. Okay. So didn't even break 80.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years ago, this movie comes out, gets great reviews. 8.2 is a stellar rating, average rating for the Rotten Tomatoes. Because I mean, if you want to look deeper into the stats, to have an average critic rating of 8.2, that's pretty damn good. That's 8. It's over 8 out of 10. Because for a movie like that, that's a popcorn type movie, and then you have critics who are, a lot of critics, some are more into the art house scene and what have you. Most of them saw this film and enjoyed it, right, Jay? Mm-hmm. So why is it suddenly turning on its head?
Mm.
Why do you think people? Is it just cool to bash this movie now?
I think so. I do. And I think some people want to just get their 15 minutes of fame or whatever doing that. So I think that's why it's happening.
I mean, I don't understand it. Specifically, in terms of fresh perspectives, I thought like Finn. Like, when did we ever really have like kind of like a character to give a face to the whole stormtrooper thing? And maybe not all the Imperial troopers maybe they don't all feel great about what they do for the Empire or the First Order. I thought that was a pretty fresh perspective.
Well, they had to do that because they weren't clones anymore. Like in episode 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, 3, or 2 and 3, they weren't clones anymore.
They weren't clones in episodes 4, 5, and 6.
I thought they still were.
No, they were enlisted. They're all enlisted. Remember, in episode 3, they decommissioned the clone army. The clones were decommissioned at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
I must have forgotten that. It's been a while since I've watched that trilogy.
All right. The point is, there were no clones in the original trilogy. There are no clones. There are no clones that we know of in this trilogy. But my point is,
well, in 4, 5, and 6, there is Boba Fett. He was a clone of Jango Fett. So he was one clone that was in.
Boba Fett was not a stormtrooper. He was a bounty hunter.
He was a clone, though.
So,
he was a clone of Jango.
My point is, I'm talking about Imperial troopers, Imperial officers.
Yeah.
My point is, Finn was fresh because we never got this sense of giving a face to these kind of anonymous troopers who always wordlessly do the bidding of these tyrants and never seem to have any sort of. They had no dimensional qualities as characters. They're just they're faceless. They're faceless characters without any identity. Finn gave an identity to these characters and gave this idea that maybe they're not, you know, maybe there are dissenters within the ranks, or maybe there are people who are conflicted about what they're doing. And I thought, wow, what a fresh way to look at this idea that there could be a dissident Imperial trooper that doesn't really like what the Empire First Order do, or the way they do things. I thought that's a very fresh idea for Star Wars. Would you agree?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
So I think Kylo Ren was a very interesting character because what's interesting about Kylo Ren to me is because he's like, in the older films, you see characters who are on the light side, but they're pulled toward the dark side of the Force. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But with Kylo Ren, it's almost like the reverse, where you have a villain, but he's constantly, his temptation is not to the dark side, it's to the light side. And he's fighting, it's like he's fighting against his true nature. And I think that's interesting. So I'm not going to fall into this sort of, I don't have this idea that because the movie had some similarities to the original trilogy, it's like a bad film now. And I think there was definitely a wave of nostalgia with this film,
mm-hmm.
that maybe it influenced some people's opinions, but and maybe it wore off. I guess maybe for some the honeymoon period is over, but I'm not really going to say it's a bad film. I mean, was this nothing more than a mediocre rehash, Jay?
No, it wasn't.
All right, so here's something noted film critic David Poland said about J.J. Abrams. He went both barrels. Really, doing another Star Wars is sadder for J.J., who still hasn't made a true film of his own original voice, than for Star Wars fans. That's pretty harsh. What do you think about that?
I think that's ridiculous. It's just how it is harsh. It makes no sense in the sense.
But here's one thing. His feature directorial debut, I think, was Star Trek. Then he did Super 8. So Super 8, original film, not a reboot, not a remake, not a sequel. It's its own film. Then he did Star Trek Into Darkness. Then he did The Force Awakens, and now he's doing Episode 9. So does David Poland have a good point? Even though he made Super 8, is J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker just making too many reboots and sequels?
I don't think so. He's breathing new life into series, but I don't think he's making too many reboots or sequels. No, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, I mean, what about his work on TV? I mean, you think about Lost. J.J. Abrams had a huge creative hand in Lost. I know. I mean, he help write? I think he directed the pilot, but like, let me see. I think I think he had to have done some writing on it as well. But he also worked on Felicity and Alias, and those were both popular shows. So let me see here. Okay. I mean, he was co-creator of Lost, and he wrote, and I think he wrote 3 episodes at least. So, I mean, Lost is a TV series, but Lost is Jay, is Lost not the show that's responsible to sort of like changing TV into what it is now?
It had an impact, that's for sure. I agree with that. I didn't watch Lost much, to be honest.
I mean, okay, did you ever watch Alias?
No.
Okay, so you're not an Alias fan. All right. He also wrote Joyride, for Forever Young, Regarding Henry. I mean, as director, yeah, he's done. I mean, he hasn't done many original screenplays, But Super 8's an original film. I guess unless you want to say, could you argue that Super 8 is nothing more than Abrams just borrowing Steven Spielberg's voice and just making a Steven Spielberg film without his own voice?
I don't think so. That was the one where it was the weird little cube and the giant alien, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't agree with that because Spielberg never did.
It was an original film. It was an original film. What was that?
Spielberg never did anything that big. He's done alien stuff, but not like that.
Well, I mean, you could argue that it's similar to like E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I don't think so, because E.T., yeah, he wanted to go home, but he wasn't. Well, he was, but Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I think they just wanted to contact humans, right? I've seen that movie, but it's been a while. So
yeah, but it's not just the story; it's also the kind of the style and tone, the cinematic, a director's cinematic voice, his style. Sort of an auteur style. You can argue that guys like Spielberg had one, or more recently Darren Aronofsky, David Lynch. Is Abrams like too into populist mainstream entertainment and not like sort of discovering his own voice as a filmmaker?
No, I think he's got his own voice, because I think he proved it with Star Trek 1 and 2, where it's like, it was different from the previous ones. It was alternate timeline, and then with episode 7, he proved, hey, he can take on a star. I think people were iffy when
his Star Trek films have a lot of critics, though.
But I think that when they announced he was originally to episode 7, they were afraid. But then, like, he proved, hey, I can do this, guys, if you give me a chance. So
I have no problem with that, since I love episode 7. So
as do I.
It's strange. It's a strange thing to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm personally I'm fine with the move, just because I think it does give a bit of stability to the franchise. And I just hope J.J. Abrams wants to come back and he wants to do this, and he's not just doing it for the money. And I hope I'm not saying it isn't, but I think his heart is in the right place, and I have no reason to believe it's not. What about you?
You too.
All right, then. So that's the situation right now. J.J. Abrams is coming back to Star Wars for Episode 9, which is now due out December 2019. And I think, so here's what we're looking at. We're looking at Episode 7, December of this year, and then May will be the Han Solo film, which, as far as we know, has not been delayed. And then, so that'll be out in 2018. Early in the summer, and then December of the following year will be the conclusion of the sequel trilogy, which will be Episode 9, which still does not have a title.
Well, question though, could it be between Episode 8 and Episode 9? Could they do the Obi-Wan movie in that time, do you think? Because it hasn't been announced yet, has it? The release date?
They'd have to, let me think. If they did, Jay, they would have to get started on it like right away, because because Han Solo is going to be out in less than a year, and they're going to start production on Episode 9 soon. Probably, let me think. If Abrams and Chris Terrio are just writing it now, then that means, let's say that means they go into production, let's say, early in the spring, summer 2018. Or let's say they go into production about a year. So they start production in 2018 for a 2019 release date. So if you have another movie, you'd have to get started on it, like, pretty much. I don't think there's going to be time. I don't think you're going to have time for another movie.
Was there a chance they've already started now, they just haven't told us? Could that be a possibility? Secrecy?
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I mean, we've heard the other projects. So
Ewan McGregor said he's going to be Obi-Wan, right? He already said that, right?
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
Oh, really? Okay.
Here, I think he did say something, but I don't think he said he's. because those Obi-Wan rumors didn't even start until very recently. So here's last month we only heard the first talk of the Obi-Wan script, and Stephen Daldry is the reported director on board, but Lucasfilm hasn't confirmed any of this. They haven't said anything about Obi-Wan. And I think the earliest they could get out Obi-Wan, I think, is 29. Let me think. We're 2017 now. Mm-hmm. So they're just possibly in the script stages for Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan, I think the earliest it could come out is 2020, if you really think about it. Because we only have, think about this, we only have 3 months left of 2017, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to have one Star Wars movie next year. And then we're going to have another one in 2019 at least. Mm-hmm. So somewhere in there, another one could start being made. But you would need a really quick turnaround because of all the visuals you have to do for these movies. You would need a really quick turnaround to get it done by, let me think, 2019. I just don't think it's possible at this point.
The only reason I think it is because Disney has been known, especially with like their, a lot of their other projects, that they'll be working on it, but they won't tell us anything. There'll be secrecy. So they could be working on it now, have not announced anything yet. Then when it gets closer to, like, say, like after episode 8 comes out, say, oh yeah, by the way, Obi-Wan Kenobi movie is happening, and McGregor is going to be a part of it, and da-da-da-da-da. Because, like, they could have worked on it for 2-3 years already and just not told us. That's a possibility.
I think it's going to take a while. I think they're saying Obi-Wan Kenobi, let's see. Mm, 2020 is the year they're giving. So that would put it after episode 9. Now, if they started shooting Obi-Wan like later in 2018, they could probably have it out by mid-2020, like 6 months after, because that's what they're doing with Han Solo. It's coming out 6 months, basically 5-6 months after episode 8. So that's probably what will happen with episode 9. 5-6 months later, we'll see Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I think we're going to get the announcement soon. It's just going to take a little while. And I think that for all we know, they're still working on deals like for Ewan McGregor and whatnot. I think Ewan McGregor said he's interested in coming back. And for all we know, they could have already signed a deal with him. We just haven't heard about it yet. Yeah. But if they have, they're keeping it close to the vest. But the point is, here's the real nitty-gritty. None of this means anything until Lucasfilm says it. And even then, it could still change because here's what happened. Josh Trank was announced as a Star Wars director. What happened to Josh Trank?
Got fired.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller were the directors of Han Solo. That movie started production with them on board. What happened to them?
They got fired.
Colin Trevorrow announced as the writer-director of Star Wars Episode 9. What happened to him?
Fired.
So, what does that tell us, Jay? Even after these announcements get made, what happens?
Nothing's set in stone.
Exactly. So, I know we're reading this in the trades, but I think it means that stuff could be moving that we don't know about. Yes, that's absolutely true. But even after an announcement gets made, the situation could still change. Do you believe that Trank's movie was supposed to be the Boba Fett film?
I don't know. I don't know, because it's true we heard about that at one time, but we haven't heard diddly about that now, so who knows? Maybe. Hard to say.
Okay, then. Do you think one of these movies should be Boba Fett or Bounty Hunter based at some point?
I think if they were going to do one about it, Bounty Hunter at all, I think it'd have to be Boba Fett, because none of the other bounty hunters really got as much, like, are as well known as him, because he's a Mandalorian too, right? Isn't he?
I don't think he is. I think they.
He has the armor though, right?
He has the armor, but I think Pablo Hidalgo, you know, he's like the head of the Lucasfilm Story Group. I think he said Jango Fett is not a Mandalorian.
Okay. But Jango had the armor. Boba Fett had the armor, and we've seen in Rebels and Clone Wars a lot more about Mandalore and the Mandalorians.
Right.
So I just don't know of another bounty hunter that's been as well known as Boba Fett. That's just the reality. So if they were going to do a standalone movie of a bounty hunter, I think that'd be the one they'd have to do, really.
Okay, so here's something. This apparently came from Star Wars: The Clone Wars DVD materials. Dave Filoni said, according to George Lucas, the Fetts are not Mandalorian. After the creation of the official Star Wars canon, Pablo Hidalgo of the Lucasfilm Story Group reiterated that the Fetts are not Mandalorians. So Jango Fett, Boba Fett are apparently not Mandalorian. What do you think about that?
It's weird, but it is confusing because they do have the armor. But maybe they still.
Well, I mean, anyone. I mean, it's armor. I mean, I could get the Mandalorian armor. It doesn't make me Mandalorian because I'm Jewish. So, I mean, if you wore Mandalorian armor, would that make you a Mandalorian, Jay?
No.
Is it that simple?
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Because you're not from Mandalore. What planet are we on?
Earth.
So, unless Earth was redubbed Mandalore at some point, and we're living in the Star Wars galaxy right now, and we don't know about it, it's it doesn't really mean very much. I would love if we could. It doesn't have to be a Boba Fett film, but I would kind of love to see kind of like a film maybe where Boba Fett and some other bounty hunters get together and they go on sort of like a Dirty Dozen type mission. I think that would be cool. What do you think about that?
I don't think they could do that though, because they never really worked together anyway, right? There wasn't like a network. Well, there was a network of bounty hunters we saw in episode 4 or 5, but
they've worked together.
But they were all lone wolves though. Like, and they so like
Clone Wars, Cad Bane worked with a bunch of bounty hunters.
Okay, but that was Clone Wars, so that's a different timeline than now. So
yeah,
unless they did it in the Clone Wars timeline,
I think in Aftermath, there were also bounty hunters that worked together as well.
Well, if it would depend on the timeline. They did it in the sounds like the Clone Wars timeline, they could do it. But if they did it any time past that, I don't know if they could.
I'm just spitballing here, but saying like these bounty hunters, they're maybe, you know, revolted by the Republic, and maybe they're given like, hey, you guys are kind of persona non grata to us, but do us this favor and we'll give you guys amnesty. Because I think some bounty hunters after the fall of the Empire were given amnesty by the Republic, because I'm talking about Chuck. Do you know the Aftermath books by Chuck Wendig?
No.
You should if you're a Star Wars fan, I would definitely recommend. If you don't read the books, you can listen to the audiobooks on for Aftermath on Audible, and they're very good. The audiobooks are very well done, and you know they have music and sound effects. It's like listening to a radio play for Star Wars, and they're very well done. They even have the music, and they have John Williams music in them, so they're really great. And there are bounty hunters in them. There was a bounty hunter from Clone Wars who showed up in Aftermath. I forget his name, but I think it kind of shows. If we saw, I would love to see a movie about those type of characters, because I don't even think we ever found out what happened to Cad Bane. So if Cad Bane was like a villain now and working against them, I think that would be really cool.
Well, we only recently found out that Boba Fett is still alive, right? We haven't found that out at all. No, I could have sworn I read something where like the Sarlacc he fell into, he survived somehow.
There's no evidence. No, I'll tell you. In the Aftermath books, someone does find here. I will read you the whole thing, so we can.
I'm not saying Aftermath. I'm talking about there was recently something else where there was something about it, because I read something. Bubba's fate.
His fate has never been confirmed. Okay, here it is. So there's this, they find this, some Jawas are selling some salvage. They look through a stash of prize goods, these two guys, Cobb Vanth and Adwin Charu. They find a battered set of Mandalorian armor, picked and pocked by some sort of acid. It had been through hell and back. What does that sound like to you?
Let me check this out because I'm looking at the same thing you are.
Picked and pocked by some sort of acid, like stomach acid, okay? The stomach acid of the Sarlacc creature, right? Let me go on. From the box, he withdraws a helmet, pitted and pocked, as if with some kind of acid. But still, he wraps his knuckles on it. The Mandalorians knew how to make armor, didn't they? Look at this, he says, holding it up. Mandalorian battle armor, whole box, complete set by the looks of it. Been through hell and back. I think my boss will appreciate this. It's pretty obvious what armor that is and whose armor it was. This takes place after Return of the Jedi, a short time after. This is like the Empire's on its last legs, and the New Republic is taking shape and trying to, finally end the Galactic Civil War. And there's this little salvage sale, and these two dudes find Boba Fett's armor. We don't know what happened to the guy wearing the armor, but there's a full set of armor that had been put through hell, but it still lasted. And we don't know what happened to Boba Fett. Now, what is this new evidence you discovered?
It says at one time, let's see.
This is like all we've gotten of Boba Fett after Return of the Jedi. This is all we know.
Well, it says that there was an impersonator of him at one time, Jodo Cast, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, who is Jodo Cast?
It just says, in the one I'm looking at, it says, rumors of a new character taking the mantle of Boba Fett long after Disney's takeover, or perhaps even further back to Jodo Cast, the Fett impersonator. And then it says here, the one that I'm looking at, it says there could have been a chance that he maybe like deserted his armor to have a low profile. So it doesn't say he is alive, but it says like there could be.
Okay, so in other words, there's no confirmation he's alive. We haven't gotten anything. In other words,
yeah.
What does all this mean, Jay? We have no idea, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Come on.
Yeah.
So all we know is that he fell into the Sarlacc pit. Somehow his armor survived. Jawas got a hold of his armor and were putting his armor up for sale. That's all we know. We really have no idea. Now, I specifically remember something from Pablo Hidalgo commenting on what happened to Boba Fett, like at I think at a convention sometime back. Okay. We really have no evidence that Boba Fett is still alive. And everyone likes to kind of create rumors and clickbait, but there's no evidence that he is alive yet. He could be. We just don't know. And Lucasfilm has not said or confirmed anything. We saw Boba Fett, the Marvel. Do you read any of the Marvel comics?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, you should take a look at some of these because some of them are quite good. Boba Fett is in the Darth Vader comic. You know about the Darth Vader comic series, at least, right?
No.
Okay. So Marvel has published a number of Star Wars comics that are part of the new canon. You do know the new canon, right?
Was that the one where they revealed what Jar Jar's fate was?
No. That was Aftermath.
Okay.
So Boba Fett has been appearing in these comics, and you sort of see the first meeting of Boba Fett and Darth Vader. And Darth Vader actually sent Boba Fett to find Luke Skywalker after the explosion of the first Death Star. And this is apparently the first meeting of Boba Fett and Darth Vader. And in another Star Wars comic, you see Boba Fett looking for Luke Skywalker, and they actually have a fight. Boba Fett was unsuccessful in capturing him, but he tells Darth Vader that this kid who blew up the Death Star is Luke Skywalker. And of course, Darth Vader, that's how Darth Vader knows he's his son. So you kind of see all that play out in these Marvel comics. Doesn't that sound cool?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds cool. These are very good, and you should check these stories out. I'm sure you could find them on Comixology or somewhere. Or a lot of good comics are available, or Marvel.com even. You could probably read them digitally. A lot of comics are available in the digital space now, making them a little bit easier to read and also cheaper. So, but these are all before Return of the Jedi. So we really still have no idea on what Boba Fett and his fate was. Other than that, let's see. Okay, so here's something Pablo Hidalgo said at Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim in 2015. So this was before episode 7 came out. Pablo Hidalgo said Boba Fett is both simultaneously alive and dead in the Sarlacc. Now, what does that mean, Jay? That means, as of now, we have a situation where Boba Fett is confirmed to have fallen in the Sarlacc pit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does falling into the Sarlacc pit mean, basically? What did C3...
Usually it means you're dead.
Okay, so C3PO, I think, said, what did he say about the Sarlacc pit? Now, we're getting deep. We are getting deep in here now. This is like, if you've already tuned out and you've stopped listening because of this deep, nerdy discussion, I'm sorry, but we're going deep in here. What did C3PO say would happen?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
He said you'd be digested over like 1,000 years, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So you'd be dying a slow, torturous death.
Mm-hmm.
All we know, so we know he fell in. And all we know after that is that his armor somehow got out. I mean, kind of got an acid wash, but still intact. So that means that maybe the armor was enough to protect him a little bit for him to get time to get out. But we don't know for sure. It's just speculation. We know his armor survived. His armor got out and got salvaged by Jawas. Maybe he did disappear and he's trying to keep a low profile. But what Pablo Hidalgo means, like he's both alive and dead, is we don't know his true fate as of yet. And Lucasfilm Story Group is basically waiting until another time to clarify that mystery. So it's just, as of right now, it's an unsolved mystery. So how do you feel about the current standing of Boba Fett?
Well, I know that Disney likes to keep their secrets, and they like to have the surprise factor come up. So who knows? On Rebels, maybe he'll show up. Who knows? I mean,
so basically, well, he's. I mean, he could show up in Rebels, but Rebels takes place before Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but he could be an adult. But it's only so many. But he was originally around. We saw him originally in episode 5, right?
Right. As
that
a
was
kid.
The first introduction, right? We didn't see him in 4.
Right. Well, in the special edition, he's in there.
Okay. So if Rebels is what, 6 months before A New Hope?
Right now, I think it's like a year. We're at like a year and a half, basically.
Before A New Hope.
Right.
So that means that he could show up, and maybe he will. Who knows?
Yeah, he was supposed to show up in the unfilmed final season of the Clone Wars, and they even did some animatics. Have you seen this? His gunfight with Cad Bane. You can You can find this on YouTube. There's an incomplete animated sequence where he has sort of a shootout with Cad Bane. You know Cad Bane, right?
Yeah, he was one of the assassins.
At least you know who Cad Bane is.
Yeah.
So Dave Filoni even thought about like sort of making him into the popular Boba. He has in this sequence, he has the armor, and we see how he gets the dent in his helmet. But that scene was never finished and never released, so technically it didn't happen. And we don't find out the fate of Cad Bane in this scene either. So that's kind. So this is your homework, Jay. After we're done here, I want you to look up these sort of Boba Fett in the Darth Vader Star Wars comics.
Okay.
You can look up the Aftermath books. You don't have to like read all of them, but you have to do some research. Okay, I'm not going to accept otherwise. If you want to keep going on here, okay? You get me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So Chris Terrio, he's kind of the other X factor in this. What do you think of Chris Terrio as a writer, and do you like him working on Star Wars?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, what has his previous work been again?
Argo, which he won an Academy Award for, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and the unreleased Justice League movie. Yeah, you know, you're not. You're like, well, what of those movies is good, right?
I wasn't someone who hated BVS because it could have been.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. Because it could have been better, but it could have been worse.
Okay.
You know, and BVS, people forget.
You liked it more than American Assassin.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Definitely, absolutely.
All right.
So I think that especially if he's gotten an Academy Award, he clearly has at least an idea what he's doing about writing. So
yeah, I
think he's good. I have high hopes.
How do you think Justice League looks then? Because he wrote that as well.
I don't know. That one I'm iffy about. Because it could go either way. They proved that they know what they're doing with Wonder Woman, but they also still have done bumpy films before that. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. So moving along. I mean, the last time we did a show was before it came out. It came out. I mean, Stephen King's It, which the first movie. It made $117 million. An R-rated movie in September made $117 million on opening weekend. Now it's in its second weekend, and it made $60 million. So let's go with the current standing.
I thought it made 137 its first weekend. I thought I saw that.
You know what? You might be right. I was thinking of no, 123.
Okay.
So it was even higher than 117. So the estimate for this weekend is 60, and now the movie's looking at 218 million and counting off of a $35 million budget. How did this happen, Jay?
I think it happened because, for starters, even though the budget isn't huge,
no,
it was a bigger budget. It was a bigger budget than the made for TV one. And there's better special effects now. That's just the reality. From 20-some years, like Pennywise could do a lot more in this one than Tim Curry ever could do. Not to say Tim Curry wasn't good. Tim Curry was great for the time. But
it was just a TV. It was a TV movie. This is still a feature film.
And with a higher budget, it could have more gore and just really, I think what it could do is it could tell more of the story that they couldn't do on TV. I think was what it was. There were still things in the story they couldn't tell, but that's beside the point.
Well, it's not over yet because they're still going to make another movie.
Of course.
That's definitive at this point. They could probably.
That was kind of clear before these numbers went out because they left it open for sequels.
Do you think they try to make even more movies beyond a second one after this?
I don't know.
You know, like the Hunger Games or Twilight.
I don't think so. I think that after the second one, I don't think there's a way to do more, to my knowledge. Even though it's a long book, I think by the second one, it's done, to my knowledge. So I don't think. Yeah,
but I mean, look. I mean, The Hobbit was one book. He made it into 3 films. Remember?
True, but that wasn't a 1,000-page book, right?
And then they made like a 200-page book into 3 movies or something with The Hobbit, right?
Right.
And then The last Twilight movie, I think, was one book they split into 2 films. Harry Potter, the last, yeah.
But they did that with Harry Potter and with Twilight because they couldn't, like, usually there's certain like books to movies they can cut stuff out. They couldn't with those.
Right.
They pretty much had to put in as much as they could with I want to say New Dawn was the last Twilight.
Right. So they did that in 2 parts. And, they did Deathly Hallows in 2 parts.
Yeah. So those 2 they had to put in as much as.
But Hobbit was only supposed to be 2 movies, and they ended up doing 3.
Well, that was a cash grab, and to be fair, they weren't as good as the Lord of the Rings anyway.
Well, look, I mean, we're talking. I mean, cash grab. This movie is now like the biggest R-rated movie in history, I think.
I thought that Deadpool made more. Am I wrong?
Maybe. It might have made slightly more opening weekend, I think.
But this is one of the better horror films, bigger horror
films.
All
right, Deadpool, all right, it's number 2 overall behind Deadpool. Mm-hmm. But look, to do that in September is crazy.
Mm-hmm. True.
You know what the biggest grossing movie in September, I think, before this was $48 million for one of the Hotel Transylvania films. And that's like a kid's movie. So for an R-rated horror film, it's definitely the biggest horror movie opening weekend of all time. An R-rated horror film to do that much for its opening weekend. It's unprecedented. It's unprecedented, Jay. It's unprecedented.
I had a hunch this might happen though, because Stephen King was talking really highly about it.
He was talking highly about The Dark Tower, man. Come on. That doesn't mean much.
Well, The Dark Tower is different than this. That's a different story.
The Dark Tower is one of his most popular stories. In that movie,
But he took 7 books and tried to make 1 movie. He knows better with this, clearly.
He didn't make. Okay, first of all, Stephen King did not work on these movies, Jay. Come on. He might have had some. He's the original author, and I think he might have signed off on some things, but he didn't write or direct these movies.
I'm not saying he did, but I'm saying that didn't he executive producer or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, executive producer is not necessarily. It's not always. Sometimes it's an honorary title. Like Stan Lee is, I think he's executive producer on every Marvel thing that gets released under the sun that has his characters in it. You know,
so.
And he doesn't really work on them at all.
I'm just saying because when J.K. Rowling did that, they did have some say. They didn't have full say, but they had some. He might
have had minor input for it, but I doubt he didn't really work on them. My point is, King was giving glowing praise and giving glowing approval to The Dark Tower, and that came out just a month before this movie. So,
true.
My point is, Stephen King is a great writer. He's a legendary writer, a legendary author, but where the films is concerned, I don't think his opinion means all that much. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
I agree with Dark Tower. I don't agree with this. With this, when I heard that he was saying it was actually pretty good, I was like, all right, maybe it is good. And it turned out to be very good.
Okay.
So with this, I think that his praise was justified. So when I heard that, I was like, all right, if Stephen King is being surprised of how good it is, yeah, I was it gave me a bit more hope for it before I saw it, of course.
85% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.2 out of 10 average rating. Even for a horror movie to get this good, or to get a rating like that on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty damn good. Do you think now the time period when they're kids is set in the 1980s? Do you think that was the right move? Because in the original, it's the 50s.
Yeah, because I think that people could relate to the 80s better than the 50s. I just think so. I know that I could. When I was watching it, all that 80s nostalgia, I could relate to it better than the 50s because the 50s is so long ago that the audience would more relate to the 80s than 50s. I think it was a very good move.
Do you think the producers were trying to ride that sort of wave, the kind of nostalgia wave that's going on right now, and not just that, but maybe the audience of Stranger Things, with a popular TV show on Netflix that kind of has, some parallels, I think, to this style, don't you think?
I think there's a little bit there, yeah. But I think
one of the same actors too, right? From Stranger Things?
Maybe. I can't remember which one, but you're probably right.
Wolfhard?
Yeah, but I think the reason they did it was not just to write that way, but because the 80s is more relatable to the audience who will watch this than the 50s. So I think
Right,
that
because
was
I
the
mean, the primary audience, like, was born or grew up in the 1980s, right? Finn
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wolfhard.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, who plays Mike. Do you watch Stranger Things?
No, I haven't yet, but I know I need
Okay,
to. It's on my
so
list
Finn
to watch.
Wolfhard. So Finn Wolfhard, who plays Mike Wheeler on Stranger Things, which is a popular Netflix show, he plays Richie Tozer or Tozier in It. So, I mean, do you see the parallels at least between a show like Stranger Things, which kind of has that kind of style, that nostalgic style that's set in the early 80s, and It, which is set, I think, in the same time period.
I do. I see the parallels. There's also some parallels with the Goldbergs because it's in the 80s too, and there's all that 80s nostalgia there too. So it's a thing that is popular right now. I think the reason they did it at least for this movie is because it was more relatable to the audience that was the age group that was going to watch it than people from the 50s. So
All
I
right.
think smart, to be honest.
So, how pumped are you for seeing the sequel, where I guess it'll be them as adults dealing with Alex?
I'm really pumped
No, Bill Skarsgård.
I'm really pumped because at least in the Made for TV movie, the sequel was actually where Pennywise screwed with them a lot more. He did things there that were kind of on another level than he did as kids, and he did a lot with them as kids in this one, clearly. But I'm excited to see it because, and my hope is, to be honest, because what they did with the last one, they used sort of knowns, but not huge knowns. I hope they do the same thing with this one. Don't just make it all star-studded, because that may not be a good choice. Hollywood likes to do that. So I hope they do sort of knowns, but not huge knowns. Like the kid who, like you said, the kid from Stranger Things was one kid, but the rest, I think, were unknown kids for the most part. And that's the way to go, I think. So I hope they do that with the sequel.
I don't think we've heard too much about It Chapter 2 yet.
I heard about Jessica Chastain maybe being Bev, but that's all I've heard so far.
I don't think that's even. I was going to ask you about that. What would you think of her playing Beverly?
Depending on the direction they go with her, she's hit or miss. She's done some stuff that's been really good, but some stuff that hasn't. But
like what?
She was really good in The Zookeeper's Wife. She was really good in that. I really liked her in that one.
Not so good in Huntsman Winter's War, though.
Yeah, but that wasn't all her fault. That was a bad movie. And she was all right.
That's the point we're trying to make. She
was all right in
Hero Dark 30. Good movie.
She was all right in Ms. Sloan. She wasn't mind blowing, but she was all right. And then she was really good in Jurassic World. I liked her in that. So she's had good roles.
That was not that wasn't Jessica Chastain. That was Bryce Dallas Howard.
All right, my bad. Man. Fine, I mix them up sometimes. But the point is, she's been good in some stuff, and she's had stuff.
You think just because they're redheads, they're the same person?
Hey, I can't be.
That's what you think about. That's what you think about.
Who's made that mistake? Okay, come on.
That's what you think about the gingers. They're all the same. All the gingers just look the same to you, right?
Yeah, whatever.
I'm sorry. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know you are, but just yeah. But if you haven't seen The Zookeeper's Wife, it's worth watching. She's really good in that.
So here's another thing. The director of It, Andy Muschietti, he directed Mama, where Jessica Chastain was the lead. Have you seen this film?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it. No, it was a horror film, right?
It was fairly successful. Let me see.
It was a horror film, right?
It was a low budget horror film. It was released in theaters. It did fairly well. It made let me see. It made 71 million. It made 156 million worldwide. So for a horror film, that's pretty good. Jessica Chastain was in that. Do you think that could maybe get her to play Beverly in It, or do you think Chastain is maybe in too high demand right now? Because I think she's also doing the next X-Men movie.
I know she's going to be in Molly's Game. I know that's coming up, and that's another true story.
Well, that movie's already done.
I know, but she's doing a lot of based on true story movies right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she should be in this because, like, she wouldn't be. It really depends where they want to go with Beverly, because Beverly, as we've seen in this one, and I've heard in the books, is a character with demons, as they all are.
She's doing, I think, X-Men Dark Phoenix, The Death and Life of John F. Donovan, and Painkiller Jane. So those are some of her, and The Division, but I mean, who knows if that'll even come out.
I don't know.
Yeah, she was in The Zookeeper's Wife.
Yeah, and she's doing a lot of movies based on true stories right now. So I don't know if she will take this one. She's probably
doing X-Men. Why wouldn't she take this movie? I mean, come on.
I don't know. It'll depend on where they want to go with Beverly as an adult.
2 nominations. Yeah. She has 2 Oscar nominations for The Help and Zero Dark 30. Wouldn't you say The Help and Zero Dark 30 are good films with her?
Yeah, I would say they are.
Okay. Do you have any since you're the IT expert, do you have any choices in mind for any of the actors, for the adults, for the characters?
Well, I know that I remember from the last version, one of them did become a famous comedian. I remember that. Right. So they need someone who is sort of comedic, but again, they don't have to be a hugely well-known.
Seth Rogen.
I don't know. He's too well-known. And he's too busy. He's doing too much stuff right now too. And I don't know.
You also have to think, like, for the age range. How old are they in this film?
I think they're in their 30s or 40s, because it's every 26 years, so it'd probably be closer to late 30s. So if
it's 26 years, it probably won't be set in 2017 then, right?
Probably not.
So it'll probably, if it's 26, that's like 2009?
Something like that.
Okay, so they'll be in their late 30s, early 40s-ish, correct? Yes,
correct.
All right, so you have to think for the casting, you have to think around that age range. Mm-hmm. So since you have this attitude about gingers, what about Bryce Dallas Howard as Beverly?
I'd almost think, since they made the joke of Molly Ringwald, just have Molly Ringwald be Beverly. That'd be funny.
Let me.
Made a joke of that. They're like, what's Molly Ringwald doing here? It's like, just get Molly Ringwald to be Beverly.
Might be a little too old though.
She could probably pull off late 30s.
49. I mean, I think she's still good. I wouldn't be.
Don't say I should do that, Hollywood. I'm kidding, because that'd be weird.
I wouldn't be against. I mean, look, I wouldn't be against it. Does anyone else come to mind for any of the actors?
I can't think of names, but I would say follow the same formula, because even like, Skarsgård, to be better known now, wasn't hugely known before this. So like, people who
have you seen this photo? I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you seen this photo of Bill Skarsgård, the actor for Pennywise, of him doing that face without the makeup, the smile?
I saw it.
I think that's even creepier than him with the makeup on. Would you agree?
Yeah, I saw a little thing where he was on Conan where he talked about it a little bit, and he did the smile.
Oh,
I
man.
saw that. I also saw a thing.
He is terrifying in this movie. Jay.
I also saw a thing in Canada where they talked to Tim Curry about the first one, what he thought about the new one, and that was kind of a cool little 2-minute blurb.
I saw that.
Yeah, I saw
that.
So I would say the best thing to do for this sequel is do sort of knowns, but not huge, big budget stars. Because even when they did the last one, they had John Ritter.
You don't want to suddenly turn this into a $100 million movie, right? You want to keep it. You want to keep it. You don't. I mean, you want it to have a budget, but you don't want it to go like, if you get someone like Jessica Chastain, that would. I mean, she's not going to come cheap for a movie like this, right?
True.
So you don't want to. I mean, you're going to get a higher budget for this next movie, but you don't want to. You don't want to triple the budget, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to get. You don't want to get like.
Because John Ritter was in the last one, and he was known, but I don't think he was known. He was known because of some shows, but he wasn't this gargantuan A-list star. He was maybe B or C or something. He was known.
I mean, look, that was a TV. It was a TV miniseries from
1990. But they did what they did basically. What this movie did was use mostly unknowns or kind of knowns.
I think Emily Perkins. Seth Green was Richie.
Yes, he was, but that was his first role. He wasn't known before that. That was the first role he ever had.
So that was a young Seth Green.
Yep.
Annette O'Toole. Annette O'Toole was I know her. I think she was from one of the earlier I think she was on Smallville in one of the earlier Tim Curry. I mean, of course, you know, everyone knew who Tim Curry was, but let me see what else. So, but look, as a TV miniseries, which, you know, you can get some notable names for that, but you aren't going to get a lot of, you know, big names. I'm curious. I'm going to be curious to see what direction they go in for the adult chapter of the story. Do you think they can even top the first film? Now that this film has come out and it's huge, do you think they can top it?
Yes, they can, because how the second one was, the second part was a step up from the first in so many ways. Because at first, it's not a spoiler.
Have you read the book?
I haven't read the book, but I saw the old one. And the old one, at first, they're all not in Derry anymore anyway. They're all gone. And they had one guy, and they had one guy stay who, when he saw that, hey, Pennywise is back, you guys all need to come back. And the second part started really ominously right away.
Right.
And so yeah, it's going to be a step up from this one, because really in this point Pennywise kind of targets them more in the second part, because he realizes, you know what, you guys are a threat to me, and I may have to destroy you guys permanently. I don't want to, but I may have to, because you're affecting how I do things. So
the second movie, the other movie that came out this weekend, the number 2 movie, did not make as much money as it was. American Assassin, starring Michael Keaton, your favorite actor, and Dylan O'Brien from The Maze Runner and Teen Wolf. No. You did not like this movie. No, why did you not like this movie? Based on the Vince Flynn Mitch Rapp series.
It was just really boring. It was really slow, and you know, just most of it just seemed like it just wasn't really that. Like, it started off really, really kind of weird to me, and just kind of didn't really go. It took a while to go anywhere from that at first. It took like 30 minutes, 45 minutes to finally kind of start to get its footing, and then after there, it just wasn't that strong of a plot to me. It wasn't that strong of a story. I mean, the only part that really stood out to me was that part with Michael Keaton where he's getting, you know, tortured, and that was like the only part he was having fun to me.
I did enjoy that scene for some reason.
Yeah, it was a good scene. He brings a lot to that scene, but most of the movie just wasn't that strong to me. I was watching going, you know, I wanted this thing to end. I was bored. I wasn't excited.
I liked the movie more than you did.
Yeah, I know, and some people did. I just was someone, right, when I left, I was like, that was really bad.
Well,
right?
The movie actually had a similar budget to it, and it only cost $33 million. Is this a success for American Assassin, and can they make more, you think? Because there's a whole series of Mitch Rapp books.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be one of those. I think it's going to be one of those Hollywood films based on books where the first one won't make as much as they want it to, and they're not going to do more just because of that. Because they'll have some idea what they want it to make, and it's not going to happen.
Okay. Does the movie bother you politically?
No. No, politically it does not. No, it wasn't political. It's just the story itself was just kind of weak throughout for me.
I liked Dylan O'Brien's performance in the movie because he kind of had this kind of like almost like a person who was going through post-traumatic stress, but rather than the way he somehow channels that into sort of wanting revenge against terrorists. And I thought the way he handled that, I thought was very interesting. And I thought he had an interesting sort of charisma about him. But here's what I will say. I think some of the script and story elements I thought were very clunky, and just sort of like the way things evolved, I thought were, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. And I thought some of the dialogue was just really like,
And that ending was kind of weak too. It was okay, but it was kind of weak. You're like, oh, okay, you're gonna end it that way.
Like my feeling was, if I could have been like like even someone like me, like I could have like read the script in the script stage and been like, check, check, check. This is what you need to do, and I could have made like a dozen improvements to that film, just to kind of throw out some of the kind of iffy dialogue instances. Now I'll tell you, there's one scene in The Force Awakens, going back to Star Wars. There's the one scene that really bothers me is, remember when they go back to the Resistance base after they blow up Starkiller, and Finn's injured, and they rush they rush Finn to the medics, and Chewbacca just runs past Leia, and then Leia goes up to Rey and hugs her. Does anything about that seem odd to you?
No, I know why it happened, because even though they haven't announced it, it was kind of like, I think that Leia may be her mother. They just haven't announced it yet.
Come on.
No, that's what I really think. That's
you really believe that?
Yes, I do.
How?
Because every scene you see her with Rey, she seems like there's some kind of maternal instinct there toward her.
It doesn't mean they're mother and daughter.
I think so. I think it does.
Okay, she's never met this woman before, Jay. She has no idea who she is.
But she got abandoned when she was very young as a kid.
So
I'm saying that she may have forgotten.
The point is, we don't know that Leia. We don't know that Leia is her mother.
I'm not saying we do. I'm just saying that it seems to be
my point is, look. Who is Chewie to Leia? Who is Chewie to Leia?
Almost like a brother.
Yeah. What just happened to Chewie before that scene?
And of course, he lost his brother. Yeah.
Who was Han Solo, right?
Yeah.
And who was Han Solo to Leia?
It was ex-husband.
Correct. The mother of his son, the father of her son,
which is Ben Solo.
Right.
Fine.
So, does that make sense to you from a writing? I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. For him to just rush past Leia after what has just happened, and to not even acknowledge her, and for her to go up to Rey, who she has never met, and embrace her, it's not. It might be cinematic, but to me, from a storytelling, from a narrative, from a writing standpoint, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't scan.
Well, do you remember that episode 1? The same thing happened with Palpatine, where he said, "We're going to watch your future very closely." You're like, "What did he mean by that?" You didn't know at the time that he was Darth Sidious. You do. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was Darth Sidious.
You don't know that he's Darth Sidious, but you know he's Palpatine. You know he's the same. He has the same.
But what I'm saying is, it was a similar scene where it wasn't until a movie later where you find out, oh, he's the one.
When you see that scene, look, that scene, it's an obvious bit of, it's foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing. And it's obviously foreshadowing. However, look, the prequels aren't your best defense anyway, Jay.
I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying it's a defense.
If we're going to go down that route, using the prequels as an example is not the best form of defense. My point is, for that to happen, and for Chewie to just not even acknowledge Leia, even if Finn's like in mortal danger, and for them to not have any moment together at all, it's wrong. And look, I've been totally honest with you with my praise of The Force Awakens. I genuinely love the movie, but just, for problems I have with American Assassin, if there was one problem like that to me in Force Awakens, if I could change, if I only have one thing I can change, this would be my one thing. Now, I know you believe that Leia is the mother of Rey, but what if she isn't? What does that even mean? What does it even mean?
I don't know. I just think it could have been foreshadowing, I think is what it was.
Well, I guess we'll see. Would you like to make a bet on that?
No. I don't have any money to bet.
So, not money, but like you want to make a friendly bet. Would you make a friendly bet upon the fact to you that Rey is the daughter of Princess Leia?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Okay. So We're going to make a friendly gentleman's bet right now. I am saying Rey is not the daughter of Leia. Jay, you are saying the opposite, correct?
Yes, correct.
The daughter of who? Leia and Han Solo is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to go a little deeper down this avenue. Why, if they had a daughter, why would they never mention her?
Because that's what Star Wars does. It is. Because remember in episode 4, better example, Vader had forgotten he had a daughter and a son. He didn't know he had both until episode 5 or 6 said, "Oh, you have a sister." So what could have happened was maybe Rey, not Rey.
He knew Padme was pregnant with a child. He didn't know she had twins.
No, I thought she told him he did have twins. I thought the Emperor cleared his mind of that, made him forget about it.
No, nothing like that.
I could have sworn she'd said she was having twins.
No, she never said that, ever.
Well, whatever. And anyways, so what could have happened was maybe Snoke went ahead and made Kylo forget that he had a sister, because that could have happened.
No, the Emperor never did it. He never did anything like that.
He didn't. Something happened.
I think you're retroactively changing things in your head, and you're remembering things that never actually took place. The Emperor never did anything.
Why was in episode 4 though? Vader didn't know he had a son or a daughter. He didn't know that Luke was.
He knew he had a child. He knew he had a child with Padme. He didn't know. Oh, he thought he killed her.
Yeah, and the kid, right? So he killed her and the kid, right? That's what he
believed. That's what he believed. He didn't forget. He knew she was pregnant. He didn't know she survived long enough to give birth. But obviously when he finds out the name of Luke Skywalker, the kid who blows up the Death Star, who is Luke Skywalker, he knows that obviously has to be his child.
Okay.
So he just never knew that Padme had twins and was able to give birth to 2 children. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he finds out the Emperor lied to him. He didn't make him forget. He lied.
Okay.
He said he killed Padme, which was partly true. He caused her to die, but she only died after she gave birth.
Yeah.
And then by A New Hope, after A New Hope, yes, he knows that Luke Skywalker is his son, obviously, but he didn't know that he also had a sister. It's when he's fighting him in Return of the Jedi that Luke is thinking about Leia, who Luke now knows is his sister, and that's how Vader figures it out. Just because of, Jedi mind tricks and what have you.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, he didn't purposely forget. He just didn't know that information at all. The Emperor didn't make him forget anything. I don't even think Emperor Palpatine has that power. I mean, maybe they do have power to alter memories, but has that even ever been established? I don't think so.
The only thing he did was he clouded the future of Anakin to all the Jedi because they didn't know what his future was.
Look, I just feel like if Kylo Ren had a sister, if Han and Leia had a sister, I feel like there would, be some mention of her or something. I just feel like it's.
You would think so. Well, we'll see in episode 8 is really what's going to happen.
It just doesn't work for me that, because all of their grief was over their son and Luke, and none of it was really about. I feel like if they had a daughter, that was gone. I feel like there would be something about it. That's why it doesn't work for me.
Well, we'll see in episode 8. That's what's going to happen.
Well, we don't know for sure if it would be resolved in episode 8.
Well, we know that 8 is going to be a lot more about Rey. We know that. That's already been said.
We don't really know.
I think I read somewhere where they did say Rey's going to have a bigger part in 8 than she did.
The movies are about Rey. How much bigger can they be?
Because she's going to be trained by Luke most of it.
Yeah, but Rey is the main character of this whole thing. She was obviously the main character of the first movie. She's the main character. Okay, it's Rey's story. It's Rey's story, just like the original trilogy is Luke's, right?
Right.
It's her. She is the main character of these films. So I mean, it's not. I mean, we might learn more, but we might not learn everything. Just like you know, we didn't learn everything in Empire Strikes Back. We didn't know. We didn't even know Leia was his sister in Empire Strikes Back. Remember?
Yeah.
We didn't find out.
Wait.
No. He kissed his sister, remember?
Yeah.
And everyone jokes about that.
So it was Return then where he was hanging and he was able to talk to her through telepathy, right? So
that was Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. That was Empire Strikes Back he did that?
Yeah.
So don't you think she might have figured out that was her brother then?
No. No, I mean, it just means like they have a connection through the Force. I mean, because they're both children of Anakin Skywalker, so they're strong in the Force, obviously.
Yeah. Well, how do you explain how Rey is so strong in the Force? Because she was able to, you know... Any
number of reasons. I mean, Jay, how is Obi-Wan Kenobi strong in the Force? How is Qui-Gon Jinn? How is...
Well, time out. Let me finish my thought, because my thought was Rey was able to go pretty good toe-to-toe with Kylo. And even Finn tried for a minute, but he didn't do as well.
I mean, we don't know that Finn...
So like Luke, Rey has a pretty...
Finn's just a stormtrooper. Finn didn't display any Force-sensitive qualities. Finn's not even that good of a stormtrooper. He was a trash worker, remember? So... Yeah, Rey is a badass. She can handle herself, and yeah, she can go she's strong in the Force, and she can go toe to toe with Kylo Ren. However, that could just as easily mean she's Luke Skywalker's child, right?
Maybe.
I mean, look, there are so many theories.
Yeah.
Some people say she's a reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. Some people say she's Luke Skywalker's child. Some people say she is Obi-Wan Kenobi's child, but that doesn't make sense either, because I think Rey is like 19.
Yeah.
She has to be like 19 or 20 years old, right?
About that, yeah.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi died in A New Hope, and this takes over 30, we're talking over 30 years later, so the math doesn't add up, even in Star Wars.
Remember, they're also saying Snoke is either Vader or a clone of Palpatine.
Come on.
That's just what they're saying.
He's not human. Have you seen him? Have you seen it? He's not human. He's an alien.
And I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying that's what people are saying. That's all I'm saying.
People are also saying he's Plagueis, which I don't believe either.
Yeah, probably not.
I just think he's a new character, is what I think.
We won't know until December. That's just the truth. We won't know until
they might not even look. They might not even give away all the secrets in this next film. They might not say anything about. We know we're gonna see Snoke. We've seen the action figures. We've seen his ship. He's going to be in the movie, and we're gonna actually see where he is in the movie. We just don't know what we're gonna learn about him at all. And really, what did we even learn about Palpatine in Return of the Jedi? When that film first came out?
Not much.
Not much. I mean, they didn't give him
about him until episode 2 and 3. That's when we finally learned more about him.
I mean, even then, we don't know how much of his backstory is real or made up. If you think about it, all we know is that he was.
We know that he killed his master, who was able to use the Mandalorians to never.
Midichlorians.
Midichlorians, whatever they're called.
But do we even believe what he said about his master?
Well, it's supposed to be true that a Sith always kills their master to become the next master.
Yeah. But you know what? Like he said that his master had the power to use the midichlorians to create life. And what did they say? Now we're getting into the worst parts of episode 1. What did they say about Anakin? He was conceived from the Force, right?
Yeah, they said that.
There was Shmi Skywalker said there was no father. I gave birth to him. There was no father. So the Jedi thought he was conceived by the Force as the chosen one to bring balance, right?
Yeah, that's what they thought.
And then in episode 3, in Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine's like, Darth Plagueis had the power to control midichlorians to create life. So he's planting the seed that maybe Darth Plagueis used manipulated midichlorians to create Anakin Skywalker. But who knows if that's even really true?
Maybe.
I mean, is the devil, just because the devil tells you something, do you believe the devil?
No. So I think basically we're just talking about a lot of speculation here. I think we should probably move on.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. It's fun to speculate, though, isn't it, Jay?
I'm not saying it's not.
It's very fun, I think. So American Assassin to you was no good. So next weekend we have Lego Ninjago and Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Have you seen Ninjago, haven't you?
I did, yes.
What did you think of Ninjago?
Basically, it's a good Lego movie. It's not as good as the first two, but it's still a fun one, and kids will definitely enjoy it.
Have you seen the Ninjago TV series ever?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Because you know this is an adaptation of the toys and TV series, right?
I did know that, yes. I was aware of that.
Okay. Was there... did you like the voice acting, I guess? Because you had Jackie Chan as Master Wu.
Yeah.
I think Justin Theroux as Garmadon. Olivia Munn, I think, as Coco.
Yeah, the mom, yes.
Right.
And then Dave Franco's the main character.
Dan Franco. He's getting a lot of work lately. What do you think of Dan Franco?
Dave Franco was really good.
Dave Franco. Why did I say Dan?
He did a very good job as the main character. He had a lot of fun, and this one was.
All I remember about Dave Franco is he's James Franco's younger brother. I'm sorry.
He is, but he's doing a lot of stuff now. He was.
He's in a lot of movies lately. He's getting a lot of work.
Yeah, he was in both of the Now You See Me movies.
And not just that, he was in both of the Jump Street movies.
He was also in that one movie where it was "Are You a Player?" or what was that called? Did you see that one?
No, he was in what was that?
What was that movie
Neighbors.
called?
He was in Neighbors.
It was like,
he was
are
in
you
both Neighbors.
Yeah, he was in those, but he was also in it was like, "Are you a watcher or a player?" It was some kind of.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, that was good. He was good in that. So
all right, so he's the main character of this film. How did you like him as Lloyd?
He was good. He did a good job. He had a lot of fun doing the character, and he brought some good elements to the character. So I enjoyed him in it. This movie overall is a little silly and cheesy at parts, but overall it was still a pretty fun ride. Overall, it was enjoyable. I liked it.
Did they mix in a lot of live action, like with that cat and stuff like that?
There was a little bit. I don't want to spoil too much about it because it comes out on Friday, but there was a little.
Okay. Are you looking forward to Kingsman: Golden Circle?
Yes. I think that's because the first one was a surprise hit. I think this one's going to be just better. I really think it's. You already saw it.
It'll be better.
Why
do you think this will be better than the first one?
Because for starters, it definitely takes it in a new direction, and it brings it to the States, which is kind of cool, which the first one didn't have that.
Right.
So we get to see their unknown allies, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's going to be people like, Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges, who Jeff Bridges has been good in most stuff I've seen him in lately. And Channing Tatum, when he gets in the right role, he's good. It'll just be nice to see another element, the next chapter in this story, basically. And I already know who the villain is, and I think she's going to be a really good villain. I'm looking forward to seeing her.
Great. So we got those.
What about the new Spider-Man episodes?
Well, hold on. So, did you see Mother? Darren Aronofsky and Jennifer Lawrence?
No, I didn't. I have heard bad across the board about that one. I did not see it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because let me see. The movie got an F cinema score, and normally I don't put a lot of stock in cinema score audience ratings because it's a small sampling size. But this is one of the first times in a long time I heard of a movie getting an F rating from cinema score, and that's like audience scoring. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
it got a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now that's not a rotten rating. It's more like a mixed. It's more like a mixed rating.
I heard from some of the people I know that there was one I heard that liked it, but most just thought it was a messy, really weird film, and it sounded a lot to me like Crimson Peak and My Cousin Rachel, which I didn't really like those either. They were okay movies, but they were kind of messy.
It sounded like a. Do you ever watch the films of David Lynch?
Oh, I want to say I've seen him before, but it's been what has he done?
Inland Empire, Lost Highway, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, and the TV series Twin Peaks. Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, the original Dune movie.
Yeah, it just sounded like it was a film that, like, it was kind of like American Assassin. It sounds like it had potential, but it just didn't find its footing for whatever reason.
All right. So last thing, because we like to talk about this show on here, we got 3 new episodes of Marvel's new animated Spider-Man this weekend. They did 3. They're really burning through these episodes. So we got a Sandman episode.
2 Sandman, technically. 2, technically.
More like Sand People, not Sandman. We had a Sandman and a Sand Girl. We had the symbiote saga, so we had the black costume, which I think we all know what that means, Venom. And then so we got really 3 episodes of that, and then we got another episode with Iron Man, with Tony Stark.
Which I thought for a second that was Robert Downey. He sounded a lot like him. I was surprised.
No, it was actually Mick Winger, but
I know it wasn't. It just sounded a lot like him. He did a very good job.
No. He's clearly channeling the Robert Downey Jr. version of the character. Yeah. So how do you like that? They kind of did a continuous thing with the symbiote black costume in each episode, really.
I want to say when it comes to these, let's start with the Sandman one. I like the Sandman one at first because we kind of see, in a way, a different Sandman because he's he has an accident.
He's conflicted. He's conflicted too.
He's conflicted, and he just wants to save his daughter. But
then his daughter,
of course,
resents him. His Kimia.
But we
Kimia, who was actually his daughter from the comics.
We didn't know that at first. We just knew that he had failed his daughter a lot. He wanted to do what was right. And he just wanted to find her. He was worried about her,
But her daughter blames him for everything that's happened to them.
Yeah,
and that was I thought that was pretty emotionally heartbreaking, honestly.
And it was cool to see the twist of that. What she had become. That she was the same man too. You're like, damn, I thought that was a cool twist.
Sand Girl.
Yeah.
The credits called her Sand Girl.
I still thought it was cool where she became a Sand Girl. I thought that was really kind of cool to see, and it threw Parker for a loop because he was like, oh my God, what do I do with, there's this one that clearly is very mad and wants revenge and is like ready to kill her father. It throws him for a loop.
Well, clearly this is something they can revisit later on. So after that, we had Peter. Now he has the black costume.
Yep, symbiotic relationship.
It's causing problems for him. And this is similar to, I guess the comics in the old animated series. He had the black costume, and it made him more violent and more aggressive. Because a symbiote, it's a symbiote, and it's alive, and it's trying to, I guess, assert its will.
And it also channels Spider-Man 3 a little bit because you saw him get more arrogant as Peter.
Yeah, but that was all. Yeah, but that's all from. That's taken from the comics and the animated series when they did that series.
And it was cool, like with that episode, because you saw first, like, I've got this new suit. This is great. This is awesome. I love it. And then at the end, he realizes this is like not great at all. I need to get this thing off me now. And he has that battle with. That battle was great.
Right. He battled the Vultures, the Vulture Force. So now. Norman Osborn also knows that Spider-Man has some sort of connection to Horizon High School.
Yep.
Which is bad. I mean, that's bad news because that means that Norman Osborn, he's clearly a draconian Machiavellian type, and he clearly does not have good designs for. He clearly wants to take the technology that Horizon's working on. He clearly wants the black suit symbiote and he wants to use it for his own goals, which isn't good when Norman Osborn's involved. He's clearly manipulating his son as well to turn against his friends. So that's not good news. So I would not want to think about what Norman Osborn wants to do with a symbiote, for one thing.
Kind of interesting that he did kind of help Parker out, which was kind of cool. So that was like,
he wasn't trying to help Spider-Man. He was only trying to help himself.
True, but it was kind of cool where you saw that little moment where he was like, okay, you know, I will help you. But of course, he wanted the symbiote, and Parker's like, yeah, I know, goodbye. But yeah,
I mean, he was going to take the symbiote for himself, and then Peter used his webbing. He got it, and then he brought it back to Modell. And he tried to give Modell, listen to my research. I'll tell you, the one thing that doesn't work for me in these episodes is that why did Anya Corazon, why does she have the symbiote in her backpack at Coney Island and she called it her science project? No, it's not your science project. It's Max Modell's. Max Modell was working on that substance because he was trying to create a new element for the periodic table in Stark Expo. So why does Anya even have it? I mean,
I thought there was a point where they were using.
I'm sorry, Jay. That's convoluted writing. It's a little convoluted. It's a little haphazard, I think.
I'm not saying it's not, but wasn't it at first because they were mad at Parker for losing it because weren't they trying to use it for the Expo too, or it was Horizon High?
Max Modell he was apparently the one developing it for the Stark Expo.
But it was Horizon High's project, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't think it would. Anya was calling it her science project. I don't think it was hers. It was Max's.
I think she may have meant for the school is what she meant. Because like they were all working, like Miles was working on it, Gwen was working on it, she was working on it.
Yeah, but for her to have that in her backpack at that time made no sense. Like, why would you have something like that in your backpack?
They didn't know what it was. They didn't know it was alive.
She knew what it was. They didn't know it was alive, but they knew it. Like, this is a highly volatile substance. You probably just don't want to carry around in an ampule in a backpack, or
I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's a good plan. No.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, Stark Expo was my favorite episode of the bunch. We had Ghost as the villain, a character from the comics who has the ability to kind of phase through solid objects and the ability to control technology, kind of like a technopath. And Spider-Man has his first encounter with Iron Man. Spider-Man is, of course, a huge fanboy of Tony Stark and Iron Man. Iron Man's not convinced Spider-Man is a true hero, and at first he thinks Ghost and Spider-Man are working together, so that was interesting. And then Ghost shows up to the Stark Expo, and he takes control of Iron Man's new armor, and he's able to take control of all the other tech there as well. And so Spider-Man has all this tech he developed at Horizon, for his web shooters and his lenses, and he can't use it against Ghost. Another interesting thing, Otto Octavius, who's like a student teacher at Horizon, we finally saw him with the octopus arms, the Doc Ock arms. So so we got like the Vulture Force, we have Ghost, we have Iron Man, and we have the first kind of development of Otto becoming Dr. Octopus in this episode. So all pretty interesting.
And we also had where Harry had the beginning makings of the Green Goblin.
Oh, we saw that a while back because
but the hovering thing.
Harry's whole project is like the Green Goblin. He's working on the glider, and I think his whole Horizon project was sort of Green Goblin armor and not Green Goblin, but like what will become Green Goblin armor in the glider.
But the glider, I don't think we had seen till this arc. We hadn't seen the glider before that. So the glider, and he actually wanted to put it in the.
I think it might have been in his equipment earlier, but all of that's coming. All that's kind of developed. Like they're building this up.
And he wanted to put it in the expo, and Norman said, "No, you can't. You can't do that. You don't get to."
Yeah, Norman's not a good guy, Jay, and he's clearly mistreating his son. I don't like this Norman guy. He's got some bad mojo going on. So I guess what I like about what's going on is they're developing the story and they're building up all these elements to kind of happen later. Like we saw that something's clearly not right with the symbiote substance, and then Peter's dealing it with all 3 of these episodes. He gets
and by the end, Max finally realizes, you know what, you're right. It is alive, and this is dangerous, and I shouldn't use him because he didn't believe his research at first.
Yeah. Max is a jerk.
He's just yeah.
And the good news is that Peter was forced to use the symbiote again because it was the only thing Ghost couldn't control because it's organic. It's not. He couldn't control it because it wasn't tech based. So he used that to defeat Ghost, and he almost, went too far. Luckily, Max and Iron Man were able to stop Spider-Man and convince him emotionally to get rid of the symbiote again. And now it's going to the Avengers. So a lot of talk about the Avengers. We got a lot of talk about Tony Stark and Iron Man. That kind of makes me think we're going to see the Avengers at some point as well.
I liked it on this episode too. By the end, you could see that mentorship and that relationship slowly start to develop. By the end, that was kind of cool. So I like to see that on this show happen too.
Do you think at the end Tony knows that this kid Peter is Spider-Man or Paul?
I want to say
his name is Paul.
I want to say yes. Because he was smart enough to put 2 and 2 together, and he did it really easily in Civil War. He knew, like, yeah, you're Spider-Man. I know you are.
Yeah, but that's the movies. Do you think here he's smart enough to realize this kid is Spider-Man, even though he doesn't even know his name is Peter?
Yeah, I think so.
He calls him Paul. Remember?
He did that to screw with him because I think he knows. I wouldn't be surprised.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me either. So
another Easter egg on here, too, that was cool is we heard Octavius at the end go, you know what, I'll just make the arms this time without a battery pack and just connect it to my brain. He said that at the end, which is a big Easter egg.
Also, there was also that moment where Norman Osborn makes an offer to Otto. Because remember, Max suspended his development of the arms, remember?
Yes.
And then Norman's like, come talk to me if you want more funding. Pretty ominous, if you ask me. What do you think, What do you think it is that Norman wants with all this tech?
I think, we heard that Norman said he wants to have a protector too. So he wants to use the tech, at least the Goblin stuff, as their protector.
Protector for what?
Just because he knows that, Spider-Man is the protector of Horizon. And he wants that.
I don't think he wants to protect anything.
Well, he wants to protect his school and maybe his son, which maybe could draw him into. He doesn't.
Do you think he really wants to protect? I mean, maybe on some level he loves and wants to protect it. I don't think you. Do you think his motives are that altruistic?
Look, what I'm saying is, I agree that he does want to protect him on some level, but he also probably wants power.
Yeah, he wants power.
And I think what we're seeing here is the stepping stones of him becoming Green Goblin. I think is Norman becoming that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that before the end of the season.
Probably.
At some point.
Well, I know that Craven's coming next. Craven's next.
But my favorite, we also got Hammerhead. That's another classic character. My favorite thing is that they kind of build up and set up these characters, and it comes to fruition later. Or they do multi-part storylines, like with the Black Symbiote. They kind of had little self-contained stories in each episode, but through that you had Peter dealing with like the Black Symbiote. In the first episode, he's dealing with having it, and there's a euphoria to getting all this extra power. In the second episode, he sees what a problem it is, and he tries to stop it, and then he has to resort to using it again in the third episode. So, and
we also know that the symbiote isn't gone for good. It's just going somewhere else for now. So it's not that we'll see it either.
I thought Flash Thompson was also in this episode, and he almost got exposed to the symbiote, which is funny.
Yeah. Because
in Ultimate Spider-Man, Flash Thompson became Venom after getting exposed to the symbiote and became Agent Venom, which he was also Agent Venom in the comics. They clearly paid homage to that, but Tony Stark pushed him out of the way and kept him from getting bonded with the symbiote. But then I think a little bit of it did escape with Flash. Didn't it? Didn't like a little bit of it?
I don't know. But so it wasn't Eddie Brock in Ultimate?
No, it wasn't.
Interesting.
It was actually first it was Harry, and then it was Flash Thompson.
Interesting.
So there was no Eddie Brock. It was Flash Thompson in this episode. So I guess that means that Flash Thompson, I think he's going to be Venom coming up.
He could be eventually. It's a possibility.
But I think that clearly means they will be, I mean, I think we already knew Venom was going to be in this series, but I think they're clearly, now with the Black Symbiote, that means, I mean, so they clearly not only set the stage for Green Goblin, they've set the stage for Venom as well. And how much do you want to see that in this show?
I would like to see it. It sounds like, since I didn't watch Ultimate, it'd be nice to see another Venom, because I know in the comics there's a lot of Venoms. There's even one story.
You should watch Ultimate Spider-Man too.
I'll eventually.
You're behind, Jay.
But they have.
You're behind. I need you to do the homework.
They had in the comics.
Stop ignoring me.
There was an arc where
You're
Venom broke into like 7 symbiotes, right?
Yeah, that was way later on though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
first, first it broke off into Carnage, and then it broke off into a number of other.
Okay.
Because the symbiote, it's asexual and it can reproduce asexually. Basically, it has the ability. The symbiote can create offspring symbiotes, and that's how like Carnage and the other symbiote creatures were made.
Because I would like to see on here another version, because they've done so far on here other versions of familiar characters and tweaked them a bit.
Right.
So I'd like to see
Carnage is such a popular character, and since we have Venom, we're bound to see Carnage at some point. They did Carnage in Ultimate Spider-Man as well, so it's bound. They don't necessarily have to do it, but it wouldn't be surprising if it did.
I would say if they did, they'd do that in season 2. I would think.
I think it. I mean, I don't know how they'll do it, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if season 2 they do a Carnage story. But it's interesting. I think here the symbiote was, I guess, artificially made or found or whatever. But in the comics, he got it, I think, during Secret Wars.
No, time out. No, they said that they found the symbiote, the NASA or the space program brought over, like it did in the 90s cartoon.
No, that's not what happened.
Yes, it is. Max Modell said a few years ago the space program brought it over.
Okay, yeah. In this cartoon, I'm talking about in the original comics.
All right, the comics you might be right, but in the cartoon in the 90s, that astronaut brought it back.
In the 90s, it came from the. Right. In the 90s cartoon, it was when John Jameson went to space, and it came out of like the moon, or it was an alien life form.
Like it came out of a rock or something like that.
Yeah, it came out of like a moon rock. It was like an alien life form. Okay. In the comics,
it was artificially made?
No, it wasn't no, it was one of those big crossover stories.
Uh-huh.
And Spider-Man, it was in the Secret Wars where all these characters were kind of transported to like another planet or galaxy.
Okay.
And Spider-Man lost his original suit, and he found the symbiote, and it became his new costume. I don't think he knew it was alive, so he found it on like another planet, and it became his costume. And it was just kind of like this organic substance that became his costume. And then he figured out it was alive. And then he broke away from it. And then it found Eddie Brock. And that's how Eddie Brock became Venom. But, of course, you know, they didn't do Secret Wars until later in the 90s show. And here, I don't know where they found it in this show.
Now, question, in the comics, did they do the same thing where the Venom also connected to Eddie Brock because Eddie Brock didn't like Parker and the symbiote didn't like Parker because it did?
Correct.
They do that?
Yes, that was that. The whole the origin in the animated 1990s show is consistent with the comics for Venom.
Yeah.
Eddie Brock was
rival photo.
Not a body. Well, like he did bodybuilding, but like he was a disgraced like reporter who blamed Spider-Man.
Like that.
who blames Spider-Man. The symbiote hated Spider-Man because it felt abandoned by him, and so it bonded with Eddie Brock, basically.
Yeah, because they both had a hatred for Peter Parker.
Right. So here it seems like Venom is going to bond with Flash Thompson, if I'm remembering correctly.
Which Flash doesn't like Peter either, because Peter's smart and he's not.
Right. But Flash likes Spider-Man, though.
Well, true.
However, Agent Venom was a hero in the comics, and he was a hero in Ultimate Spider-Man. So there's that.
Yeah, it could happen. We'll see.
So we'll see how that happens. I like the episode. So great. I'm Jeffrey Harris. You can check me out on 411mania.com. Check out my review of American Assassin. Maybe some other movies are coming out this week that you can check out my review of. Jay, how can people find you online?
They can find me on the Good Men Project, where you can read my review of American Assassin and It. And also on Deviate Publishing, thecmagazine.com, where I did a trailer review for It that's getting some good buzz right now. So you can watch those.
All right. So we'll be back soon to judge more of the Hollywood entertainment scene, because this is Hollywood Purgatory, and this is where Hollywood goes to get judged. Thank you, Jay.
Adios.